And welcome back to Hannity. Now, questions continue to be raised about the administration's drone policy, despite an attempt at a clarification from Eric Holder that the president does not have the authority to kill Americans that are not engaged in combat right here on American soil. It's the words non-combat that raise an immediate red flag for, well, me and some other people. Here to parse through the language of Eric Holder's letter on the administration's drone policy, Fox News contributor Charles Krauthammer. Charles, always good to see you. Welcome back, sir.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's start first with the original letter that Eric Holder sent to Rand Paul. I mean, he left the door wide open, which led to the filibuster. You disagree with Paul, but you thought it was a brilliant political play by Paul.
Oh, it was genius. Look, I would call it a stunt, except for the fact that he was entirely sincere and he was entirely right. I mean, after all, how many Americans are there who believe that the president, if he doesn't like the cut of your jib or thinks you might be a little bit treasonous, has a right to launch a drone-launched missile through your dining room when you're sitting down to a pot roast with your family? So given the fact that there's not a large constituency that would oppose him on that, the choice of the issue was extremely smart. And the fact that he was playing off an attorney general who has not exactly been very adept on this issue or a host of other issues in defending the president's position. Yeah. And he created a great embarrassment until he sent this letter, which I'm not sure solves everything.
Yeah, I'm not so sure it does either, although I think so far in Rand Paul's mind it does. I've got the impression from the original letter that Holder thought he was being cute, and he was parsing his words, thinking he was being funny, playing games with Rand Paul. Did you get that impression?
Well, no, I had the impression of somebody, and I've had this other times when he did not acquit himself well, of a guy who's out of his depth. He knows that in the corner of his mind, he's trying to defend the right of the president's commander-in-chief to act on his own unconstrained. Now, he knows that it is extremely unlikely, probably impossible, there will ever be a scenario where a president would use a drone against a U.S. citizen in the U.S. But I think he felt he had to protect the authority and the domain of the president. So he was looking for a way not to admit that the president could never, ever, under any authority, do it. And that's why he got in trouble.
Between the sequestration overreach and Rand Paul, there seems to be an energy now among the grassroots. People seem really, really kind of excited at the idea of now people taking on the president losing, the president overreaching, the president miscalculating. Do you think this could be a little bit of a shift in momentum, politically speaking?
I think it is, and I think the very fact that the president all of a sudden has decided that he would enjoy dining with a bunch of senators and has discovered the joys of having lunch with Paul Ryan indicates that he knows that he's way overplayed his hand, that he went on the fiscal cliff and he's been crushed when he attempted the same class war game on the sequester. You know, his poll numbers were in the mid-high 50s, and now they're in the 40s. The Quinnipiac poll right now shows him 1 point actually underwater. So I think he understands that this has been not well played. And the energy that you're talking about among the conservatives is reflected by the fact that the White House and the administration understands that they have been sliding on this ever since they overshot on sequestration.
All right, we have two other financial issues coming up, the debt ceiling and obviously Paul Ryan's budget. I spoke with House Majority Whip Kevin McCarthy earlier today. He told me the plan, we all know there's going to be a balanced budget plan in 10 years. It will defund Obamacare, he told me. It will save Social Security. It will not raise taxes. How should they play this, knowing predictably that President Doom and Gloom, President Apocalypse, is going to go out there and talk about closing down the White House and all those things?
Well, we know what happened when they presented something similar. A couple of years ago, the president announced he was going to give a response. He gave a speech, I believe it was at American University. He had Paul Ryan in the front row and other Republicans, and then he essentially insulted them. He didn't present anything as an alternative, but what he said, that the budget that Ryan had presented, and here he is in the front row, he can't say a word in his defense, was essentially un-American. So we know that once you present a budget that the Democrats have refused to, the Senate hasn't had since the iPod was invented. Well, not the iPod, the iPad was invented. It's been a long time, and they have been hiding on the budget. I would like to see the Democrats produce a budget in the Senate so that it isn't a one-sided affair where all the shots are taken at Republicans, and the Democrats don't have to propose anything.
Well, we know that Patty Murray's saying it's going to be 50% tax increases, 50% spending cuts or reductions and increases, which is the more accurate term.
But then in the end, then if the Senate will produce a budget, at least we will have what's called regular order, the constitutional process where you get the House and the Senate in a conference negotiating the differences, which is exactly how you want it, and not in the back rooms with some kind of grand bargain.
All right, Charles Krauthammer.